Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 36 of season 4. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
Paul, we're a little short this week. Out of the squad is producer Alex and Danny on social. We had to go to the crowd, but we found somebody to be our guest today, and that is Mr. Thomas Wolfe from Charleston, South Carolina. How's it going, Thomas?
It's good. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, so your first time guest, so we always want you guys to explain how you became a Wolves fan, and is it just because your last name is Wolf?
No, but that actually does have a reason. It has a part. So I'll explain a little bit. Actually, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama.
Hey, roll
And
tide.
I'm actually a War Eagle. So I'm
Oh,
sorry. I'm
yo,
I'm an Auburn
Paul,
fan.
Paul, you did a
I know.
horrible job at getting guests.
I
I
know.
got, I got no idea what you're talking about, so
It's
carry on.
basically Alabama Auburn is like West Brom Wolves.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's brutal for sure. It's an awesome rivalry. But yeah, from Birmingham, Alabama. Had some friends in college that were in the Premier League. Looked up Premier League teams near Birmingham, England, because I felt like I had to keep the Birmingham connection. And saw Villa and saw Wolves, and I was like, my last name's Wolf, so I've got to support the Wolves. And I didn't expect for it to become like this, but yeah, it's awesome. I feel a connection to the club. Like I've never been to England before, but it's been a fun ride for the past few years. So
When did you start following the club?
yeah, it was about 2 years ago. So it was right after the January window, 2 years ago.
And
Trying to think.
either
What?
during that time or out of this current squad, who's your favorite player?
So it was actually Adama Traore. I was like, man, he is fun to watch. Like I just someone that didn't watch soccer. I loved watching him play. And so for me, it was like I want to cheer for that guy. I thought he looked so crazy. I mean, he was just, he's massive and he doesn't look like any of the other soccer players. And so watching him on the pitch was always just incredible to watch. And so he was the first guy that I really loved. And of course, Ruben Neves as well. But those two guys are the guys that kind of got me into it.
I know for the course of those seasons, what's been your favorite game or games?
Definitely the West Brom game this year. That's really when I started listening to you guys actually, because I heard Josh talk about the Alabama Auburn rivalry, and it kind of put things into perspective for me as a American fan how intense the rivalry was. And I have not been that nervous for a game in the history of watching Wolves, and so watching that game for me, that was an awesome moment, and I think that solidified that I had chosen the right club, and that it was just a fun sport to get into, and so I'm super happy that I started supporting Wolves.
Paul, I think it's funny. Here's another American that, for just strange reasons, shows Wolves and loves Adama Traore. I mean, it's really. I was explaining this to Andy Overton in Nashville. Adama Traore did a lot to bring in American fans. I don't think they. I know the English fans really don't like him. You're okay with him, but Adama Traore really brought in a lot of Wolves fans. So it was
It
pretty
is
interesting.
like that profile is so unique, like physically and what he did on the pitch. So it's no surprise, but it is just interesting that you get those minute details that factor in. It does make a difference in that support for definite.
Mhm. I love it. That's a great story. Yeah, and Paul, well, Thomas, how do you think? Because you mentioned Alabama Auburn, how do you think it compared that rivalry seemed like to what we experienced with Alabama Auburn, West Brom and Wolves?
Yeah, it felt like Wolves were the Alabama and West Brom was the Auburn. So for
Good
Paul and
call.
for other people that don't know the Auburn Alabama rivalry, the Auburn's like the little brother of the rivalry, and so I know that in the past the history has been West Brom has been the more dominant side, and so um, for Wolves to get the win, it was fun to be on that side of the rivalry. Whereas I'm used to being on the flip side, where I'm used to being the club that's the small club getting beat and losing. So I'm hopeful that Wolves can turn into the Alabama per se of that rivalry and continue to dominate for the next few years. So that'd be a fun side to be on for sure.
Gary O'Neill, Nick Saban. I like it. Well, guys, that run to being one of the best teams, probably not going to look at yesterday's game as a start. 2-0 loss to Arsenal. But Paul, honestly, I think we did above expectations after hearing the news Friday and seeing the lineup come out on Saturday.
Just like the Friday presser was just like a horror show. I kind of had to read the tweets coming out twice. I just couldn't take it in that it was the likes of Cunha that we talked about came back in, got 2 goals. The exact type of player that you wanted against a team like Arsenal, him being out, was just didn't know where to turn, and it really was a case of where they're going to put a team together from. So when the team news came out, I was surprised in that Wang was given the start, but then that was probably better in terms of managing his workload than potentially coming off the bench a little colder and perhaps some issues that may stem from that. So I thought that was a positive move. It gave us some type of presence, hopefully in the attacking third, but he's not really that type of player when you think of the trio of Neto, Wang, and Cunha that can really take it to a team and be one of those players that moves it up the pitch and can help relieve the pressure that way. So positive for seeing Torreira. At least it's given him a start. It's given it opportunities to see what he could do. And then the rest of the side, you just start to look down and think, well, actually, he's probably got it right here that if we're not going to get anything from this game, then it looks like he's going to be going all in on these next two to try and get maximum points out of Bournemouth and Luton by the decision to have Lamina on the bench rather than start. So I think when you factor all of that into it, it was a pretty fair team to put out there.
Well, and Arsenal was really dominating possession early. I was making jokes that probably going to be less than 25% this game. But then João Gomez was actually the first one, Thomas, that got the big chance. He forced a save for Raya after not finding anybody in the box. But I mean, that was really impressive considering he was playing right winger a lot of the time.
Yeah, I was impressed. I think that for me showed not only how much value he has in our midfield, but just on the pitch when he's on. I saw a stat on Twitter a few weeks ago talking about how when he plays, we're just a different team, and it's whether it's wins, whether it's draws, our points with him on the pitch and with him off. It's a big difference, and I think that a lot of the times if he's not scoring goals or getting assists, we may not think of him as having the impact that some of the other players do, but I think that further solidifies how impactful he's been for us this season, especially with Lamina not in the midfield with him. I think they've been that awesome partnership for us this year, and so I was really impressed with his ball control, specifically moving the ball up, especially with Huang. I felt like they had some good moments in the first half working together, and obviously would have been nice to see some of the other guys out there. But for what we had and for what we were trying to do, I felt like Gomez did a phenomenal job.
I think that was the crucial moment that in a game like that, if you're going to take anything from it, you've got to take the lead. In our situation, we needed to score first, and then if that led to a backs against the wall, part the bus, attritional 1-0 win, then that would have been how it played out. But it was so crucial to get anything from the game yesterday for us to score first.
Thomas, I kind of feel like Gomez is showing really of all the players right now, he's the one we can at least afford to lose this summer.
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge point. I was talking with a buddy and talking about how if we had to sell one player, like I think he's the one that I would be the most sad at losing, just because I feel like not only I think his value is going to skyrocket over the next year or two, just from um, seeing how Gary can use him in the midfield and how much value he can provide us, especially if we have a good run next year. Fingers crossed we're healthy and we can go on to finish a season out like we were supposed to this year. I think that could be, obviously incredible. but yeah, I think that just for the value that we can get for him now compared to the season, either next season or the season after that, I think it would hurt to watch him play for another team, especially if we had to watch him come off the bench or watch him be another squad player. I'd love to see him further solidify his legacy here at Wolves.
Paul, you were sitting in the table right behind me. I don't know if you heard, but it's getting close to halftime, and I go, other than Gomez not scoring there, this is like best case scenario for Wolves right now. And Jukebox Joe looked at me and he said, there's still a few minutes left. And no joke, 30 seconds later, Trossard scores. Did you think there should have been VAR jumping in there? And just how killer was that for Wolves, too?
It's like the worst possible time you could concede again in a game like that. It's at the absolute worst. Was it a foul? Maybe you might have got it on another blade of grass on the pitch, but I think it was the wrong decision to go after that one and make a big deal out of a potential foul when nothing was similar on the Semedo push from Gibbs White at Forest. So the two for me were completely different. That Forest one was a no-brainer. Yesterday's probably benefit the doubt. You don't get it anyway, but it was just crappy time to concede, like the worst possible time. I'm firmly in the camp that he didn't mean it. It was like a scuff. He kind of took a swing at it. I think if you gave him that chance, 9 other times, it's going all across the goal, nowhere near it. So that was unfortunate, but sometimes that's the look that you get when we're in our situation and they're in theirs.
Yeah, I felt bad. I totally jinxed it. But so halftime, 1-0. Playing surprisingly started the second half, but then came out 6 minutes later. Thomas, what were your thoughts on the shift he put in?
Yeah, I think there was a few moments in the game that he could have had a really good moment, and it just never fully clicked. I think there was that one link up play he had with Chirewa where they went back and forth a couple of times, and then Chirewa tried to shoot and it hit off someone's boot. I think that could have been a good moment. I think Huang benefits a lot from having Cunha and Neto around him. I'm not saying that he's not a good individual player, but I think that when we have that front three, he's so much more dangerous. And just the past 2 games, I don't know if it's just him coming back from injury or what, but he just hasn't impressed me as much as maybe Cunha obviously had last week. And some of our other players have come in straight away and maybe been the only guy in the attack and have really contributed a lot. So would have liked to have seen a little bit more from him, but at the same time, to see him come off healthy was a big thumbs up for me. And I feel like if we can get Cunha or somebody else back over the next 2 games, I think Quinn can really end the season off and finish it out the way he started it.
Man, Klinsman broke him. Makes me so angry. Paul just seemed like, we were close. All we needed was one moment of magic, but no happy ending. Saw, who had a fantastic game, made a save, but it fell right to Odegaard, and he put in a nice angle. Overall, though, how do you feel leaving that game?
I'm always disappointed after a loss, and there was a lot of positives yesterday to say, kind of considering the team and coming up against Arsenal. But I just hate being that side that we thought of being rolled over and tickled on the belly. It really gets me. And you will probably look at that score and think, well, it was typical Arsenal away, comfortable 2-0 victory to be expected. But I think the way they're set up, I think some of the specific players and positions that were utilised by O'Neill really gave him something to think about. So it definitely wasn't a 2-0 scoreline. I think I'm just going to discount that second goal because it was so late and just say that it was 1-0.
Jurgen Klopp.
Probably on the balance of things that was fine. But you do try and take away the positives of who played, who got minutes. Out Nura coming on, a good a good look at Traore as well. Now, I think it's too early to judge, but I think there was some definite positives in his link up play, his strength, the ability to hold up the ball as a smaller player. And I think that's another one that if you put him in and around better players, give him some more freedom, he could really do well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I felt like there was a good 10-minute period there where there was some real pressure on Arsenal. I was keeping up on Twitter for a while, and I mean there was some genuine nervousness from Arsenal fans. The pressure that we had on the ball. I think even when Lamina came in and played striker for a little while and had that one good hit, even though it went straight to Raya, I think that we put some pressure on them with some guys that typically would not have been in that game, and I think that taking that away and looking at it from that perspective, like Paul said, you never want to see a loss. But for me, it was like we really gave Arsenal a scare. That was their Champions League squad. I mean, that was their A team, and we had very few of our A team in that game. We still gave them a real good scare. So for me, looking at that game, I feel like that was another one of those things where we look at Gary O'Neill, and I think he played that game perfectly. We got guys out of there. We got some good minutes out of our players. I don't think we overdid anybody. I think we should look at Bournemouth and think we can play all of our guys regular minutes that coming out of that game. And I think so that was a huge positive. Obviously the Odegaard last minute goal sucks on the score sheet, but the reflection of that game is we were close, we were tight. And I think we could have definitely had the equalizer if one of those balls went our way.
Paul, I think if Lage or Lopetegui is on the touchline for this Wolves squad, that they would have lost at least 4-0 yesterday.
It has so much to do with belief in the squad and the players, and even if you lower numbers, giving the youngsters that opportunity and that belief in them, and every time that comes across in O'Neill's post-match comments, like he was glowing about them even in defeat, and that's what you want. That you just get a better feeling that he's that player's coach, whereas a Lopetegui or a Large might have got there. The attitude would probably be from them. Oh well, they're not good enough. It's their fault that we lost. It seems like it's always completely the opposite. That O'Neill or Backham, and I think that has such a tremendous follow through into what they're able to do, and that team that's been crafted, and they can never be written off anymore. So I think that's all down to the coach and what he instills.
Thomas, was there anybody that you were really surprised with yesterday for their performance? I thought Saw turned in one of his better games of the year, believe it or not.
Yeah, I was watching the highlights back this morning, and he had a couple saves I felt like were really underrated. I think when we were watching the game at first, they had so much pressure that first 45 minutes. They had so many shots, especially within the first 15 minutes. It felt like we were going to concede really early. He held his ground really well, and I felt like that was a really impressive game for him, minus the last 2 minutes. But yeah, I think Boubacar Traore for me was a massive game out of him. I think we saw a lot of what at least people on Twitter have been hoping to see. I know I haven't been around as long as a lot of other people, but whenever since he's been playing, I mean, we've seen him occasionally, but I felt like he really held his own. I was impressed by his physicality. I felt like he really was annoying to play against for Arsenal. I think that's what we needed him to do, especially coming in for Lamina. And Chirewa as well. I think there was a lot of moments that he had that whether it was just controlling the ball and moving the ball around, or trying to get the ball forward. I think he played really well for as young as he is. I've seen some of his interviews that he's done, and it's crazy to me his story and how he's come through to now starting a Premier League game against a team that just lost in the Champions League to Bayern Munich a few days before. And so I think for him, it was a massive confidence booster to get through that game. He comes off the pitch. We're losing 1-0, and there was definitely some chances that we could have had to be 1-1. So I think that those two guys for me played really well. Doyle definitely deserves a shout as well. I think he had some good ball movement. Definitely think all three of those guys were playing positions and playing a style of game that they probably aren't used to playing. But all three did really, really well.
It just shows how close we are when you've got that four midfielders vying for two or three bursts that they can come in and out, and they're all quality. And I fully agree with Traore's performance. I thought it was fantastic, and it just makes you think, where could we have been, or where will we potentially get to if we've got that strength in central midfield, if that can be matched in the attacking third, and then maybe some cover at the back as well to help with minutes. This squad really isn't too far away.
No, it isn't. It just needs to get healthy. One more thing. You mentioned Doyle, Thomas. Paul, did you hear Peter Drury saying, like, talking about, oh, is Thomas Doyle like quality enough to be playing for Man City? It's like, where we got an option to buy on him. Was that not a ridiculous comment?
I think that's a case of these commentators and presenters. They do a pretty good job, but then sometimes they don't know the exact intricacies of these players and their recent performances, especially if like Doyle has been what some would say is very much more of a squad player this season. That he's not necessarily a starter compared to Lamina and Gomez, but the games that he has done and the performances that he's put in when he has, he's definitely pushing. So I think it just goes to show that, when if the focus isn't on the top six, it may not be as detailed.
Yeah. And I like Peter Drury a lot, but Jackie Oatley would never, Paul. Thomas.
Yeah, I was curious what y'all thought about this. What do you think Doyle? Where do you think he fits in next season? Where do you think that ideally Gary O'Neill would like to use him? I feel like when he's been in the midfield, he's had some really good games. He's also had some poor games. What do you guys think that his best position would be, and kind of where do you think Gary would best use him to get the most out of him?
I think go ahead, Paul.
That's a really good question. And I think I will caveat that by formation, in that if we in some way could be able to switch to a back four, and he's in a 3-man midfield with 3 attackers, he is going to be the absolute perfect number 6 that sits behind the more forward 2 advanced central midfielders, can dictate the play a little from that pivot and drop in and help the defense. So I think for me, his role is definitely formation dependent.
I would like to see Gary O'Neill during the summer maybe try and play him a little further up, like quasi number 10, not quite that far up. But I would like to see him, because of his passing, maybe get some minutes there and see if there's something there. Because I think you're right, Paul. You want Lamina and Gomez and Doyle. I think those 3 are really, we need to find a way to get all 3 of them on the field at the same time. All right, guys, it is a double game week, which is why we are recording so early this week. We have Bournemouth on Wednesday at 2:45 Eastern, 1:45 Central, and then Luton Town at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. Let's start with the Bournemouth game, guys. Thomas, O'Neill seemed to think Cunha would be ready for that game. Do you take the chance?
I don't think I would. I think I would start him out on the bench. And the reason I say that is I think if you can get Altnori in there, if you can get some of our other squad, if Semedo can somehow play that game, I don't think the pressure is as much on Cunha as it would have been without some of those guys. I think Altnori coming on at the end of the Arsenal game for me was a good sign. Sarabia coming in, Lamina coming in. If we can get some of those guys back on, I think obviously we'd love to have Cunha start and play that game. But I think I saw a comment that it was a very strange injury. So that kind of makes me think it was maybe a little nick that doesn't normally happen. And so I would like to see Cunha start, but I think you start him out on the bench. If we need him, you put him on. If you can even rest him the whole game, get out with a point, get out with 3, give him some time to rest and play Luton on Saturday. So I would probably, Probably keep him on the bench for Wednesday.
I'm in full agreement. I think based on how the bench was set up yesterday, I think it's the prime opportunity to bring Sarabia back in, have Wang start, and maybe get to 60 minutes on Wednesday. I think Torreira did enough to warrant his inclusion again. So those three as an attacking trio could be quite tasty, and I think you can possibly take the risk more of dropping a midfielder and having the two in there, which leads to Lamina coming back in and then resting one of Gomez or Doyle. And again, if Out Nuri can come on it and get minutes as a sub, hopefully he's in a position to start. And again, that could be from left wing back, or it could be more advanced, based on Torreira's age and minutes under his belt. Whether he steps out and Out Nuri goes forward again and plays as that left-sided attacker. So I think he's got some flexibility that allows Cunha to get that time on the bench and eased into it a little more gradually.
Yeah, Paul, it seems like whenever you're going against Bournemouth in a midweek game, it's going to be kind of an ugly physical game. So I would avoid those guys that were nicked up. Thomas, anybody else that you can see that is maybe questionable that you'd throw in there? I mean, you mentioned Semedo.
Yeah, I think I would like to see Chirewa start again. I would like to see Huang and Sarabia start up front with Chirewa. I really like what I saw out of him. I think that there was a lot of really good moments. He's another young guy, but I don't know what it is about him, but I just like watching him play. I think I like his story a lot, obviously, and I want to see him do well. And so I'd love to see him with some more of our veteran players and start up front. But yeah, I think that's the only guy. I think obviously if Semedo can come back and he's ready to go, you throw him in. But other than that, I would love to see a front three of Huang, Sarabia, and Chirewa.
Well, let's look at the prediction standings, Paul. Danny has taken over first place. He is at 23 points. He actually got 1 point for predicting Arsenal to beat Wolves. In second is tied with me at 21 and the guest spot at 21, Thomas. So you have a chance. Alex has 20 points. And then Paul, you're at 14.
I might have to start writing some aggressive tweets about decisions that haven't gone my way during this prediction league season.
You're complaining the person keeping the spreadsheet as a Luton fan, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
All right, so with this Bournemouth game, Thomas, what's your prediction?
I was going between 2-1 win or a 2-0 win, and I'm actually going to go with a 2-0 win. I think we're going to ride the game from Arsenal and really take away a lot of positives from that game. I think if we can control the first half and really get out strong and get a goal, like Paul was saying earlier, I think if those types of games with our squad, how it is, the games where we can score quickly and early, we can really start to not relax, but sit back and really kind of make it difficult for them to get anything going. So I'm going to go 2-0 Wolves.
Okay. For this game, Danny predicted a 1-1 draw, and Alex went with 2-1 Bournemouth, Paul. So what are you going with?
I'm going for riding off the back of that momentum as well. I think they'll dig in. I don't think he'll be pretty, but I think we might score from early-ish from a set piece or maybe a penalty and hang on, and we're going to win 1-0.
1-0. Wow, look at you with a clean sheet. Okay. I am going to say it's going to be ugly. Not the best game for neutrals. I do think both teams score, and I'm going to say a 1-1 draw, and I'd be happy with that, assuming we get out with no injuries. And then on Saturday, guys, it is Luton Town, which I kind of feel like, Paul, we owe Luton Town a butt whooping, don't we?
There is a few takeaways from that reverse fixture for sure in terms of sendings off and penalties. So I don't really care if you're scrapping for your lives at the foot of the table. I want 3 points on Saturday.
Thomas, Luton's in a really interesting spot right now because they are just at the top of the relegation zone, 25 points. Nottingham Forest today has 26. Um, I mean, it's tough when you play against a team like that whose backs are against the wall.
Yeah, it sucks. I hate that Luton's in that position. I love watching them play. I love what they stand for. I love to watch the fight they put in every week. I definitely think it's going to be a tough game on Saturday. My hope is that by that point, we'll have everybody ready. And so we'll go into that game a lot more confident, a lot more ready, and hopefully healthy. So I'm looking for 2-0 again on Saturday. I really think that there could be a lot of positives to take away from a win on Wednesday, and I think if we could carry over like how we did on Saturday against Arsenal, where we get some guys out that get them on the pitch a little bit, let them run, let them get the legs back under them a little bit. Hopefully, in a week's time, we'll be ready to go.
Paul, I almost feel like this contest is the last chance Wolves have to get points on the season. Do you agree? Other than
I think
Palace, I mean, they do have Palace at home, but Palace is always tricky for us.
Palace is in actually good form with the new coach as well. But I'm probably thinking by that stage of the season, both sets of teams could be effectively on the beach anyway, and that will probably play out to a draw. So I think Saturday you've got to factor in that they will really be looking at that fixture as something that they need to get something out of, because looking back yesterday, 5-1 home loss again against a team like Brentford, that you'll be thinking, if we are going to stay in the league, we've got to be getting a win at home against Brentford. So I think they're going to have to try and go for it. I think that will actually work in our favour. Out the two games, these early goals are crucial. If we're able to get one on Saturday, I could see us winning at a canter. So I'm going to say 4-1 Wolves.
4-1 Wolves. How about you, Thomas? My one concern would be if Luton scores first, they are just going to park the bus.
Yeah, I definitely could see that happening. I think I think Wolves, if we can really weather the storm to start, I think they're going to come out. I think I could see Luton coming out with a lot of pressure and trying to get the
Mhm.
game going. I think, like you said, I mean, Palace is looking great. They're up 5-1 right now on West Ham. So I mean, they're in incredible form. We have obviously the three title contenders as well to end the season. So I think if we look at Saturday and we're like we've got to go for it, and a nil can really dial up the pressure. I think it could be a big game, like Paul was saying. Wouldn't be surprised if we scored three. If we scored four, I might be a little surprised. But we, I wouldn't be upset. I would not be upset by that at all.
So what are you going? 3-1, 3-0,
I'm going 2-0. 2-0.
2-0. Okay.
I think we're gonna score two. I think we're gonna withhold the pressure, and I think we're gonna dominate the game in the way that we should have the first time.
Okay. Other predictions we had Danny had 2-0 Wolves. Alex had 1-0 Wolves. Luton has pretty much every game been able to throw one on the score sheet, Paul. So I don't think we'll get a clean sheet out of them, but I think that attacking is going to open them up big time to counterattack. So I'm going to say 3-1 Wolves as well. Paul, it was a really big week when it came to Wolves International Development and the supporters groups here in Houston. And you've got to chat with Stephen Williams of the newly launched Houston Wolves Soccer Club to learn all about it.
Stephen, tell us about your journey as a Wolves fan and establishing yourself here in America professionally on the coaching side.
Yeah, so Wolves have been in our family for, since I was born, but obviously it started with my dad. and we had season tickets since I was 4. And then my brother came along and we had season tickets with him as well. We had them all the way up until 2015 when we moved out here as a family to America to pursue coaching. We'd coached in England before, but I'd traveled over here in 2013 and landed in Houston in the summer, which probably wasn't a good idea, but at the time we saw a need for extra coaching and kids looking for a new kind of adventure. So we thought, hey, it's time to just jump in the deep end and come over. So since then, it's been Wolves have played a lot better since we left. So maybe we were the problems. But since being here, it was great. Obviously, meeting up and starting the Houston Wolves fan club and being there for the fantastic Bristol City game, and so many other good memories with the fan club. But yeah, we're excited now to be able to do the being part of the Wolves and the fan club, and also running a soccer club as well at the same time.
So this special partnership is pretty unique. It's been about 2 years in the making. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. So we've been in touch with Joe Hunt, who's with Wolverhampton Wanderers and their football development. He'd reached out to us because he knew us through the fan club, and was interested that we ran a soccer club, and were we ever interested. And slowly over the last couple of years, we've thought that this might be more beneficial to the players that we have, and really providing them with an opportunity and an experience, not only to partner with a fantastic club, I'm being biased, but a fantastic club in Wolves, but also the opportunities that they bring, and also the resources. So as part of the partnership, they give us access to their curriculum, which obviously they're a Category 1 academy, which says only 27, I believe, 27 in the whole of England, which, they've produced some fantastic talent. And so it's great for us to be able to have that and use that for our players, but also some, fantastic experience trips and coaches coming over to the US, which is fantastic. But obviously all the joys of, for us as coaches, being part of the Wolf Pack, as it says on the introduction.
So how do you see the evolution of both the club and this partnership coming together over the long term?
I think for us, the sky's the limit, really. Ideally for us, it's obviously taking a lot of benefits that the Wolves bring to us in terms of their academy. Like I mentioned before, the curriculum is one big piece, but having monthly coaches meetings and our coaches being able to actually discuss certain things with the academy staff in Wolverhampton, that's more beneficial for the coaching side of things. But for the players and the parents, it's obviously having the opportunity to interact with the coaches. So we have them come out on a regular basis. This year they'll be out to do a giant camp to kick off our partnership with them in June, which will be really exciting, as well as obviously having the opportunity to go to Wolverhampton, take players and parents to go on an experience trip, train at Compton, hopefully watch, 1 or 2 Wolves games depending on the schedule, but having that opportunity to really go and experience what it's like, but also having the cultural experience of getting to go to England and, see what it's like. It's obviously nice to watch it on a Saturday, but to be there in person is something completely different, which we loved growing up, and it's obviously something we want to share with the players that we have at the club.
It's fantastic that next generation of US men's national team talent or US women's team national talent could be nurtured right here in Houston. So it's fantastic. So Steve, with that, can you tell our listeners how they can get in touch with Houston Wolves Soccer Club and learn a little bit more?
Yeah, so if they head on to the website of HoustonWolvesSoccerClub.com, you'll see all our programs. We do stuff from 3 years old with our mini Cubs and little Cubs, all the way up to our older teams that play competitively. You'll be able to see all the details on summer camps. Like I said, we have the Wolves camp in June. But yeah, we have lots of different programs all throughout the year, as well as find us on all the social media. So following Houston Wolves Soccer Club on Facebook, Instagram, X, or Twitter if you're old school. You'll be able to see us all the time interacting on there as well. So yeah, just reach out and give us a shout. We'll be more than happy to invite you to be part of the pack.
No Stupid Questions is presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So whether you're celebrating a Wolves victory or winding down after a day at work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of California's wine country with every sip. For a limited time, head to esfuerzowines.com and use the promo code WOLVES for a 15% discount on your wine purchases. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their products responsibly and in moderation.
That was Stephen Williams of Houston Wolves Soccer Club. And now, Paul, it's time for everybody's favorite segment.
No Stupid Questions, that part of the show where you, the listener, can play your part, send in your questions on X at WLWpod, Facebook, or by email, which is hello@wholelotofwolves.com. We have got one this week, and it is a big one. Todd DeWitt asks, who wins in a fight between Godzilla, King Kong, and Mario Lemina?
So, I mean, Mario's got to have like some kind of like mecha outfit, right? To make this fair.
I don't think so. I think he's got the talent. He's gonna crush it.
Have you seen the new? Have either of you seen the new Godzilla Kong movie? Okay, well, I have.
I've not.
Of course, I have. I'll say this: Godzilla definitely the stronger, but he's not very good at calculating strategy or anything. He just kind of goes in, Whereas King Kong maybe a little more strategy, but he's also prone to giving up bad position. Well, Lamina's great. Boy, he can strategize. He gets in good positions. He has that strength. So I think he'd have a chance if he was like 100 times taller. But he's not, so he probably gets stomped in the first 2 seconds.
I think it's got a perfect wrestling extension that Mario goes up against it, and the music hits, and in comes Noah Lamina as his brother, the bloodline, to beat up Godzilla and King Kong and turn it into a tag team and get victorious that way.
What do you think, Thomas?
Yeah, I think I got to go with Mario. I mean, the passion, the heart. He's already got his hand wrapped up. He's ready to go. I mean, he's ready to fight. The tap in with Noah, I think, yeah, it's easy.
Nice. Next, no stupid question. It is from Brian Donnelly, and he asks, we've been watching more game shows recently. So if Wolves had to challenge Arsenal to a match of Flory's lava instead of football yesterday, who is on each 3-man squad?
Each 3 minutes. Well, definitely on Wolves for me. It's got to be Gomez. It's got to be Aitnery, and probably Cunha, because I feel like those are the 3 that are sneakiest or have the best moves on their feet. What do you think, Thomas?
I like that. I think Gomez is for sure for me. I'm going Neto. I think you get him riled up, you get him angry. I think he'll give you the passion, and he might complain a little bit, but I think he'll come through with the win. And Aitnery, of course. I think his footwork. You gotta have somebody like Aitnery.
What do you think, Paul?
I like Aitnery. I'm thinking here that it's a lot to do with upper body strength and being able to climb across the walls or those like moving bars and things like that. So the lightness of Aitnery, the dexterity on his feet, I think he'll be a good one. And I think you also need a little bit of height as well for like those box jumps or the jumps to get from the final obstacle to the platform, especially if we've lost the last step of the platform. So even though they're not the tallest, I'm going to go for Gomez for what's been said up to this point. But my other one, based on strength, fairly decent in the air, is actually Wang.
Okay, interesting. There are a lot of Korean game shows too, physical ones. So he's probably watched some as a kid. I bet Paul, did you watch a lot of game shows growing up, like during the summer? Because that's a U.S. staple out here, where it's like, oh, you watch Price is Right and all this stuff. Do they have that in England?
Yeah, especially when I was growing up in the 80s and you had those 4 channels and nothing to watch. So you were just stuck watching those cheesy game shows. But then in the summer, that's like what got me into watching cricket, because there was nothing else on apart from a whole day of watching cricket. So you could
I
watch
became a
those.
Cubs fan.
Yeah, crappy game shows and soap operas like Sons and Daughters, the cheesy Australian ones, or you could at least watch some sport. So that's the path I took.
Thomas, what do you think? I'm trying to think. What do you think Jose Saw's favorite game show is?
Jose Shah's favorite game show. It has to be something with a crowd. It has to be something where the crowd's involved. He has to use the energy around him to get everybody going. I think Price is Right could be good.
I was thinking Price is Right.
I think you could
he would
get
dominate
Saw.
on the wheel. He'd just be like, "Blah."
Yeah, and he, I mean, I could see him putting his hands up on his ears and letting everybody yell for him. And I think it would be, yeah, I think that'd be awesome. I'd watch it for sure.
I'd like to see Huang on Supermarket Sweep. Um, Paul, is there like a game show with a guy you'd like to see on?
I'd like to put someone in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Ooh,
Who
would be good for that one?
Yeah. He's just got his degree. I think he's got some smarts. He comes across well when he talks. I think Kilman would go far.
Interesting. I'd like to see Kilman on Fear Factor just to see him grossed out about what he has to eat.
We won't go into detail about Arsenal's team for Floor is Lava. Other than that, I hope one of their 3 is Aaron Ramsdale and he falls in the lava immediately. That's that one answered.
That's a good point.
That is No Stupid Questions, and it is brought to you by Espresso Wines, showcasing 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So go to espressowines.com, use the promo code Wolves, and that will get you a 15% discount on your wine order.
Thomas, thanks for making your club debut with us today. How can people find you?
Yeah. No, thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure to be on the podcast. So I'm actually on Twitter under Wolves Whisper. I've put in a couple of no stupid questions, so I'm out there putting a couple of tweets out from my burner account. But yeah, if you can find me there, and I'd love to meet some of you guys in person one day. I know you guys made it to Nashville a few weeks ago. Was hoping to make it out there, but next time we have some get-togethers. I know that I'm not too far away from some of y'all, so maybe a game coming up, or
You're
maybe
in
even
South
next
Carolina,
season.
right?
I'm in South Carolina.
Yeah, it's not too far from Atlanta. What is that?
No,
2.5, 3 hours?
yeah, so it can't be too bad. So it'd be worth it for sure.
There you go. There you go. Andrew Smith, reach out to him.
We are back next week to review both of those games, and then it's on to the second of our games against the title contenders before the end of the season, when we travel away to Man City on May 4th. So now that you've listened this week, be sure to warm down, protect those hamstrings during the week, but to everyone you meet, say loudly and proudly, up the mighty Wolves.